Mario 64 was Mario's first jump into a 3D space. I'm sure everyone knows that by now. As a result, the series was turned from a simple linear platformer to an exploration-based 3D platformer. Of the 120 stars in the game, 15 of them are based on collecting 100 coins in each of the game's main stages. These are some of the best examples of this exploration required to beat the game, along with these being some of the hardest stars to collect in there as well. Collecting 100 coins can range from being a cakewalk to a brutal test of patience, exploration, and survival, as one death will completely reset your coin counter. There are no checkpoints, so it's up to you to play smart for these stars, which is why they're some of my personal favorites. In today's video, I want to take a look at all 15 of these stars and figure out which are the best and which are the worst. So, how will we be determining that? Well, the main thing is how fun each of them are to collect. What's fun is of course different for everyone, but for me generally, the fun ones will be stars that have a lot of room to move around in and customize how you go about them. Speaking of, each stage can have a different number of coins which can make their 100 coin stars harder or easier. This will play into the ranking as some stages just have way too little coins to be considered fun. The 100 coin stars should encourage the player to explore the stage, but also have several different options of going about them. As a result, some stages are just simply built better for 100 coin challenges due to their layout making it less tedious to roam around. So with those rules laid out, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, but let's get right to ranking all 15 100 coin stars in Super Mario 64. My last Mario 64 video was about 10 months ago now, and it ranked all 23 red coin stars in the game. I mention it here because the mission I said was my personal least favorite was pole jumping for red coins in Dire Dire Docks. That star is terrible, but it has nothing on what might just be the single worst star in the game, Dire Dire Docks 100 coins. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Dire Dire Docks is a water level, and a pretty bad one at that. This stage takes an incredibly long time to move from place to place, and in turn, it takes a long time to collect these coins. It's separated into two different sections, and traversing between them takes forever. By the way, this stage only has a total of 106 coins, being the second lowest amount for any of the stages in the game. You can only miss 6 coins if you want to get this star, which in my opinion is a bit absurd. You basically don't have a choice as to where to go, meaning that you are forced to do at least part of the red coin star. As I mentioned in the other video, these pulls are just far too slow and take forever to get from place to place. My favorite part about games like Mario 64 and Mario Odyssey is having the freedom to move around wherever you want to and move quickly at that, but these pulls just completely restrict that from us. On top of that, there is a major issue that this stage has that comes as a result of both its low coin count and Mario 64's mechanics. One of the game's biggest flaws is its very short draw distance, or in other words, how close you have to be to an object before you can actually see it. Due to the hardware it was on, this distance is pretty small, meaning it's completely impossible to see certain coins until you're right next to them. If you don't understand why this is a problem, here's some footage of Mario trying to explore the stage for some coins. There's a lot of space for him to move around, especially since he's in water. During that gameplay, Mario actually went right past a ring of coins because there was zero indication that they were there at all. And yes, finding this ring is required to get the star as there are 8 coins here, and as I said, you can only miss 6. While this problem does apply to every stage, none of them are nearly as bad as Dire Dire Docks, since this is one of the most open in the game. Most stages are designed in a way where Mario wouldn't even be able to see the spot where coins are before he's close enough to load them in. The ring of coins here is just too far out of the way and has no indication of it being there unless you're directly next to it. On top of its limited coin count, some of these coins are very obscure. First off, there are 5 coins next to the hole that can very easily kill you. These aren't required, but you'll probably end up needing them due to a different set of 5 coins being probably the most obscure in the game. At the very start of the stage, where absolutely nothing else is located, there is a line of coins on the wall that again, you can't see unless you're right next to them. Asking the player to find these coins here is just horrible. No one is going to look here, and those that do are just going to be frustrated by the fact that the developers had nearly required coins completely out of the way. So, due to this being a water stage, tedious waiting sections, an incredibly low coin count, obscure coin placement, and Mario 64's draw distance, this is easily the worst 100 coin star in the game. These next two I'm covering together because they unfortunately share the exact same flaw. The two stages are Shifting Sandland and Lethal Lava Trouble. If you didn't immediately understand why these two are placed low, let me explain. Both of these stages have locations that Mario can go inside to collect several stars, being the Pyramid and Volcano. I do like the decision to have these in the stages for the most part, as it provides more places to explore and makes the stages feel more unique. The one thing I don't like about them, however, is how they interact with the 100 coin star. Once you enter into either of these locations, there's no way out, which means you could get into a situation where you've collected all of the coins in both of these places and are just short of hitting 100. On top of that, going into the Pyramid is required for the star in Shifting Sandland. Despite the total coin count for these two being pretty solid, 136 and 133 respectively, there just simply aren't enough coins outside of the pyramid to hit 100. That means the player has to guess how many coins they need before entering, which is just a horrible design choice. If a player is even short one coin, then that's it for them, with no fault of their own. While it is possible to lock yourself out of the 100 coin star in other stages, that's always because of players' actions in not collecting a coin before it despawns. In these stages, there's no way of knowing how many coins you need to get before entering the pyramid or volcano. Guess wrong, and not only do you have to restart, but you have to waste your time collecting a star there, since if you die within the volcano or pyramid, you just respawn there upon re-entering the stage. This seems like a massive oversight, which forces me to put these quite low on the list. Had the pyramid and volcano been given exits, these two would have been significantly higher. In fact, I think Lethal Lava Land could have made the top 3 because riding around on the shell on top of the lava to get the coins quickly is a ton of fun. As it is now though, this design choice is just simply too much. So for this, Shifting Sandland will be getting 14th and Lethal Lava Land is unfortunately going to get 13th. Now that we're done with the 3 that have severe design oversights out of the way, let's get into some of the more competent ones. Jolly Roger Bay is the stage with the lowest coin count in the game, being 104. That means if you miss even a single blue coin, you have to reset the level. Luckily, the blue coins here are pretty easy to collect, and thus getting locked out of the star is much harder to do than you might think. Now you all may be wondering why this would be placed above Dire Dire Docks despite this coin count being lower. Well, for one, there's no waiting on this stage, meaning you could just keep on moving, even if it is swimming. On top of that, the coins are not placed in any obscure spot, so you'd be able to find them all relatively easily compared to Dire Dire Docks. Finally, the stage is much more closed in, meaning it's much harder for draw distance to get in the way here. While this is better though, it doesn't make up for being a water stage and its incredibly low coin count. This is still at least a somewhat competent star though, so I have to give it credit there. You know, it's kind of a miracle that Rainbow Ride's 100 coin star isn't even in the bottom 3. This is infamous for being an annoying star on an annoying stage, but there are actually some positive qualities to this. This has the highest amount of coins we've seen so far at 146, meaning you don't have to go throughout the entire stage if you want the star. Additionally, that means you can actually miss all of the stage's blue coins and still get the star. The blue coin switch on the stage is probably the hardest in the game, requiring Mario to wall jump up 2 walls very quickly. If you've played Mario 64 at all, I'm sure I don't have to explain to you why wall jumping is kind of annoying. The reward is certainly worth it though, as there are 25 coins worth of blue coins up there, meaning it would be a massive help in speeding up this star. Personally, I'm actually a really big fan of how that plays into the stage, and I think that's how all blue coin switches should have been designed. Make them difficult to get, but if the player can't get them, let there still be enough coins in the stage to let them get 100 coins afterwards. The other blue coin switches are just too easy and don't really feel rewarding to get, they just seem sort of lazy. This one was actually thought out quite well though. Unfortunately, this had to be tied to one of the worst stages in the game. You know how I talked about waiting in Dire Dire Docks? Well, in order to get the 100 coin star, you still have to wait on several on carpet rides where you don't get to do anything but just stand there. This makes the star overall very boring to get. If it wasn't for the really smart blue coin switch, it would have been below the last choice. Still, it's sort of hard to justify the basically auto-scroll stage getting any higher than this. Tick-Tock Clock is probably the most linear main stage in the game, as there really is only one way to go most of the time: up. Personally, I don't really find this to be much of a bad thing. In fact, I quite like the stage as a whole due to its more platforming-centric design. There are 128 total coins here, which is certainly a good amount, especially since most of them will be kind of hard to miss. This is also our first stage of the list to have blocks with 10 coins in them. It's not really important, but I always enjoyed collecting coins from these blocks a lot. This is what I would say is the hardest 100 coin star in the game, just due to it taking place in what I think is the hardest stage in the game. I personally enjoy the challenge a lot, but there is one huge thing that brings this down. While this technically can happen on any stage, Tick-Tock Clock is the by far most known for this, that being invisible walls. Much like the 2 stars seen in Shifting Sandland and Lethal Lava Land, this punishes the player for no mistake of their own. On top of that, invisible walls in this stage are especially awful. Since this stage is all about being a vertical climb, you're either going to fall a significant distance if you hit one of these, or you're going to fall all the way into the void and have to restart from scratch. The invisible walls are just too prevalent here for this to be forgiven as one-off glitches. Before even getting footage for this video, I got hit by them several times, and with every restart I felt like I had to move this down lower and lower. To clarify, I don't have anything against an actually hard star. In fact, I really enjoy challenges, but making the player lose all of their progress to a common glitch in one of the hardest stars in the game is just unforgivable. Luckily, no waiting is required once you're in the stage, which saves it from being in the bottom 5, but for now, this whole stage just makes me feel like I'm playing a poorly designed troll level from Mario Maker. I don't know for sure, but I believe the DS version fixes most of these, so in that game I'd probably rank this star higher, but since this is a Mario 64 ranking, it's going to take the number 10 spot. From here on, there aren't really any glaring problems with these stars, so my critiques are going to start becoming more nitpicky as I try to separate these from one another. I decided to choose Hazy Maze Cave as my first one of these significantly better stars. There are 139 coins in this stage, giving plenty of wiggle room to go pretty much anywhere you'd like. In a stage as big and confusing as Hazy Maze Cave, I'm very thankful that you don't have to go through the entire thing. On top of that, the coin count is high enough to allow you to not have to ride on the slow elevators for coins. So with that said, why is this low? Well, I'm just simply not a huge fan of Hazy Maze Cave. All of these years later, it's still pretty tedious to navigate, which is of course by design, but it does make the 100 coin star in particular somewhat annoying to collect. On top of that, there are several times where you have to ride elevators from level to level, which can be quite slow and annoying if you have to go back and forth. Optimally, you could just avoid these elevators, but for first time playthroughs, you're likely to be riding up these guys a lot. The final thing is that there's a chance a player may discover the middle cap level while going for the star, and if they decide to enter it, it would reset their coin count and not allow them to finish. I don't think this is as bad as the Volcano and Pyramid because this is an entirely different level, and thus it's obviously not required to get the star, but it's still something that can be frustrating to go into by mistake. Overall though, there really aren't that many problems with this stage's 100 coins, making this a pretty competent star. Unlike the last stage, I've always been a fan of Wet Dry World. Something about it is just so eerie and weird, and it makes it stick out as probably the most unique stage in this game. That definitely influenced my placing a little bit, however there are a few flaws that I think I should cover here. Before we get into that though, the stage has a solid 152 coins, meaning it's pretty hard to run out of coins to collect. There are even enough coins so that you don't even have to go into the town area, which is nice for exploring the huge main stage. There are also several 10 coin blocks on the stage, which I said before, I just really like for some reason. Wet Dry World's water shifting ability also makes the stage much more enjoyable to get the 100 coins since you don't have to swim. So what are the flaws? Well, like a few stages we mentioned before, this has a sub-area. Now, this is not nearly as bad as the ones before as you can actually escape it, but if the water level is too low, then that might be quite difficult to do. I'm not sure what they could have done here, but having some way out would have been nice. Aside from that, a lot of the coins here are from the blue coin switch, which is just a bit too easy, and I would have liked them all to be placed a bit more interestingly. Maybe they could have all been placed on different levels of the stage, or maybe they could have been placed on the arrow lifts that no one uses, just something a bit more interesting than this. Besides that though, this is a pretty fun star. Now we're on to the stage with our by far largest amount of coins, being Tiny Huge Island with a whopping 191. This is of course due to the stage having both a large and small variant, on top of the big enemies giving you up to 5 coins each. I say up to because interestingly, jumping on them normally only gives you a single coin, whereas ground pounding on them gives you a blue coin. Personally, I'm a bit mixed on that concept. I do like that this rewards the player for trying something new, however I don't like that hitting the enemies with ground pounds can be annoying at times. Since the Goombas jump into Mario when they see him, it can cause situations like this where I start up my ground pound but I only got a single coin instead. In fact, the best way to hit these guys is by ground pounding them when you aren't even above them, so really the hitboxes are just whack. Luckily though, since there are so many coins, missing a few from these guys isn't really a big deal. I do enjoy riding around the stage and collecting as many coins as I can with the shell, however traversing the stage normally I always found to be a bit tedious. The huge version just feels too big and spread out, but the tiny version as well feels too cramped, so there really isn't any winning. I do still find this to be better than the others we've mentioned so far just due to how many options you have, but the general stage traversal just prevents this from being much higher. On top of that, you can't escape the Wigglers area once you enter it, but you really have to be trying to get stuck to have that happen, so it's not really a big deal. Tall Tall Mountains coins are, in general, pretty fun to collect. There are 135 total, and most of them are found on the stage's slide, which is definitely the hardest of the 3 in the game. The coins are also quite challenging to get here, but feel rewarding when you do so. You can't just slow down to get them all, as they're still quite easy to miss. I personally really like the challenge of this star, but the main thing holding this back is the outside, as it's really not that fun to traverse. The way all of the paths split off from each other, it makes it pretty tedious to run back and forth up and down the mountain. The slide is still a ton of fun though, and definitely carries the star, but the mountain does keep this from top 5. Also, I do think we should point out that the slide is one of the good sub-areas that will actually let you leave when you're done with it. However, if you spawn the 100 coin star in here but miss it since you're on a slide and moving quite quickly, then it will despawn when you try to come back. This is another pretty bad oversight, especially considering a lot of players will be completing their 100 coin star in here considering the slide is at the top of the mountain. So for those reasons, this is just going to miss out on being on the top 5. The first stage of the game, Bob-omb Battlefield, of course has a pretty solid 100 coin star, though it's not perfect. Let's get the good parts out of the way. Traversing and exploring the stage is very fun. You pretty much have a completely open area to explore at any point, meaning the exploration to find these coins is very fun to do. With a total of 146 coins, there are plenty to spare, which means this is open to several different routes. The coin count isn't too high to make this super easy though, you still have to explore the entire stage pretty much to get what you need. There's also no blue coin switches here, which I like since they can make the stars far too easy. But there are two things here that I think take away from this star. First is the fact that 25 of the coins in the stage are tied to running around the poles. While I don't have anything against this concept, there is nothing on this stage that even remotely implies that you can do this. There is a hint later on, that being in Tiny Huge Island, the 13th stage in the game, meaning you likely already did Bob-omb Battlefield's 100 coin star long before then. The second unfortunate thing is the star requiring the player to go to the island. There's 99 coins on the ground level of the stage, meaning you have to tediously shoot out of the cannons around the stage in order to collect some coin rings. While I do like the stars making you explore, the island is just a bit too much out of the way. It's not a huge problem, but it's just a minor annoyance, which is why this is going to be getting 5th place. Big Boo's Haunt is probably the most unique one here, as I personally find this stage's 100 coins to be more about hunting down and killing all of the enemies in the mansion. There are 151 coins total, but most of them are tied to enemies, especially because of every enemy except the Scuttlebugs dropping blue coins. I personally really enjoyed the unique take on the star that this stage had. With the high amount as well, you can entirely ignore going down to the basement if you want, which is definitely the worst part of this level. There's a ton of coins down there, so it would be worth it, but you do have the choice if you don't feel like going. Really, what's keeping this from being at the top is the fact that Big Boo's Haunt's exterior is really barren, and that's on full display here. There's really only a Tox box, a few Scuttlebugs, and a coin block, which is a super small amount compared to how much space there is. On top of that, the blue coin switch is once again hard to fail, giving the player a free 20 coins. What if they instead moved the blue coin switch to the outside and designed some special area for it? Maybe they could have had a mini platforming challenge or just something more interesting than them being placed in a line. As it is now, the outside is just really boring to explore with almost nothing of value. Aside from that, this mission is a lot of fun as it really lets you explore every corner of the spooky mansion. But now, I think it's time we look at our top 3. Before making this video, I was absolutely not expecting the star in Snowman's Land to be so high on the list, but to be honest, there really aren't many flaws here. There's 126 coins in the stage, which means there's a decent amount of wiggle room. This is another one with a shell, and surprise, it's fun to collect as many coins as you can while riding on it. The stage is laid out in a way that makes traversal with the shell very fun and comfortable to do. On top of that, the coins in the igloo, while nothing crazy, are certainly nice to have here as well. This is also a sub-area that you can actually leave when you're done, erasing the problem that Lethal Lava Land and Shifting Sand Land had. If I have to give it a flaw, I'd say there's just too many coins bunched up together in this one wall of the igloo. Spreading them out would have been a bit better. Really though, that's not a big deal, and the only thing keeping this from being higher is the fact that I find the next two to just be slightly more fun. But for this stage's lack of general flaws, this will take number 3. I guess the winter stages were just made for 100 coins because Cool Cool Mountain is my next choice. With a nice 154 coin total, there are just a lot of ways to go about getting this. My favorite thing though is of course going on the slide. While not as challenging as Tall Tall Mountains, it's still a ton of fun to try and collect as many coins as possible since they can be quite hard to nab. Speaking of Tall Tall Mountain, my main problem there was traversing the stage was a bit tedious. However, Cool Cool Mountain completely fixes that problem. There's a warp point right at the bottom of the level that will take you all the way up to the top, allowing you to not only skip the slow ride back, but also the long journey to the summit. The only thing I think I would criticize about this is that it's just a bit too easy. Sure, 154 coins is not the most we've seen, however the stages above this had a high reliance on enemies, making the collection of coins difficult. On top of that, many of the coins on the slide are placed directly next to each other, removing the difficulty that Tall Tall Mountain had of having to make quick movements to get them all. I mean, just look at this. All of these coins are just placed in a direct direct straight line. There are a few off the main path, but with this stage having such a high coin count, they really aren't necessary. It's to the point where I've never actually used the blue coin switch on this stage, so I think difficulty is the only real thing I would change here. I'd rather a star be too easy than too hard though, because now this one is just a relaxing star instead of an exceedingly frustrating one. For that reason, this gets runner-up on the list. This is what I fully expected to be number 1 the second I started this video, Whomp's Fortress. This stage was just made for the 100 coin star. It's very compact and dense, meaning it's easy to access and explore any area from anywhere on the stage. With a very solid 150 coins as well, this is just a fun one to route out. I'd say this is probably a better starter 100 coin star than Bob-omb Battlefield, since you don't ever have to go super far out of your way to collect these coins. Parkouring up to the floating islands is also a lot of fun to do and well worth the reward, along with taking out the stage's piranha plants and Whomps. I also always liked how you can get 5 extra coins by jumping on the Whomps before killing it. It's not required and probably slower, but it's a nice Easter egg regardless. The blue coins on the stage are super easy, however I think they should be in this case. This is the first stage to have them after all, and giving the player an easy introduction to the concept makes sense to me. Plus it's only 20 coins as opposed to some of the bigger amounts like 35 in TikTok Clock. The best way I can describe this star is that it's just really smooth to collect them all without slowing down. You could take this at pretty much any pace you want, as there's no waiting involved at all. It's just down to how fast you can perform everything. You all know I love that type of design in Mario games, and I think Whomp's Fortress 100 coins does that perfectly. You basically get to explore the entire stage, but it doesn't feel slow or tedious to do at all, which is why I think this absolutely deserves to be the easy number 1 spot on this list. But anyways, that's it for this video. Are you a Dire Dire Docks fan and hated this ranking? Let me know in the comments. The middle portions of this list were especially hard to put together, especially after those first 5, since I think a lot of them are pretty similar quality-wise. Hopefully you all were able to mostly agree with my choices. If you did enjoy the video regardless, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The last Mario 64 video didn't really perform great, but I'm willing to give the game a second chance as it is my second favorite 3D Mario game right behind Odyssey. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.